Obviously, as I said earlier, officers implement council policy and guidance. So we determine those applications in accordance with that guidance. You know, in terms of the way the system currently operates, we don't get that many household applications coming to this committee in any event. So I mean, we do get the odd application, but it's not. You know, it doesn't seem to present a significant issue now in that respect. And obviously, ward members, if an application isn't coming to committee, ward members are then free to represent the objectors. You know, whether they're not on committee or not, in that because it's not coming to committee, it never will come to committee. You're not then bound by I'm trying to think of the word, the prejudging an application before the decision-making process. So it just creates clarity in the way that we deal with the applications at the start of the process, in the same way as major applications. So that's the logic behind the scheme of delegation as proposed.
Okay. Did you still want to come back? You're not in your head, but there's a lot of uncertainty in your face.
Listen to the rest of the comments. So I was just saying, I'm not convinced yet, but I'll listen to the rest of it.
Okay. Councillor Mike Davis.
Yeah, thank you, Chair. I would like to know, apart from aligning with the other local authorities, what's the benefit of moving from 20 members to 16, please?
Okay, I'd say those are. I mean, there's been a huge amount of research done, particularly by Welsh Government in recent years, and then the Audit Commission has recently published a report again focusing on this issue, in that larger committees are seen as generating inconsistent decision making and inconsistent sort of attendance. So obviously, as the report indicates, the average attendance of this committee is only 14. And tonight, I think there's 14. We're probably down about 12 or 13 at the moment. So, in terms of committee numbers, it's there is a similar number. But what it's about is getting more consistent representation on the committee, so that we have more consistent decision making. That's the logic behind a smaller committee. Personally, and I have worked with much smaller committees. I would prefer a smaller committee. I think most larger authorities in Wales and most large authorities in the Cardiff Capital Region have a small committee of 11 or 12 members. It does make it easier in terms of training and development and so on and so forth, to have a smaller committee to deal with. So those are the sort of logic. That's the logic behind the arguments for smaller committees. It's more consistent attendance, more consistent decision making. The research indicates, and a more manageable number of committee members to train and develop and build relationships with, and so on and so forth.
Just to come back in on your comment there, Ryan, since I've been chairman, I know it's not a great deal of time, but I think we've had 4 meetings. We haven't had 14 members here, not to my recollection. It's been 12, 13. I think perhaps once we had 14, but no more than that. So we are dealing with that size committee anyway, but it still doesn't take away the reason for your questioning, Councillor Davis. Councillor Hussey?
Thank you, Chair. I agree with the vast majority of things in this report. My question is relating to the Planning Enforcement Charter. Earlier on in the report, they said that we've only got 2 enforcement officers, which is down from 8, I believe it was, but only one's actually in situ at the moment. But in the planned enforcement charter, they say that like a priority 1 case, that would be investigated in the next day, priority 2 within 10 working days, and the priority 3 in 25 working days. My question is, how could we expect 1 or 2 enforcement officers to police any matters that's arising? Are we going to employ more enforcement officers? Or perhaps what we could do, joking aside, is the members who are going to drop off the planning committee, perhaps they could be enforcement officers.
Yeah, I mean,
Thanks.
we do. There is a significant resource issue, not just in enforcement. I mean, the planning application caseloads are very high for the likes of Carwyn and the other officers, and we are attempting to deal with that. So we have put proposals forward for additional staff resource, and that will come before as part of the budget report next month. So this report is written in parallel with work to try and get additional resource in as well. There's a limit to it. I mean, we have to try and provide a service, and particularly the priority 1 cases in the charter. They are ones which we need to get out to, because there's really significant impact as a consequence. So we have had some of those issues, certainly since I've been here in the last 12 months, and we've had to deploy other officers to go out and deal with those issues, which is not ideal, because that means they can't deal with their other responsibilities or their main job. So yeah, we are working on it, and hopefully with additional resources and the proposals as part of this report, we'll get in a position where we can deliver our statutory service.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Thomas.
Okay, thank you, Councillor Hussey. Councillor James Fussell.
Yeah, thank you, Chair. I just want to make sure I'm reading this correctly, and appreciate Councillor Miles was picking up on point D, really, which is the delegation. We're not actually accepting that, are we? I'm reading the Scrutiny Committee endorsement, which was everything bar for that 1. So if we're going to recommend it to go forward as a planning committee, is that one exempt now?
I can answer that, like Chair, that was my understanding. That was the verdict of the committee, that it would all go through apart from item D. If Councillor Morgan could clarify that, I'd be more than happy, because that's what I presume we agreed on the evening.
Yeah, Andrew, I think your recollection is absolutely correct. Yeah, it was omitting that item.
Thank you.
Okay,
Thank you,
Ryan, you wanted to come back in?
Yes, please. Yeah. Well, what the report? I mean, the report is, the recommendation is as before you in the recommendation section. What the response to the scrutiny recommendation was in the report, that scrutiny were concerned about the thresholds. So although they voted to exclude any amendments to the scheme of delegation, what I would invite members is to consider whether the other elements of the proposed scheme of delegation should continue, and whether we maybe remove the thresholds as indicated in the call-in, or we discussed earlier, in terms of the 20 objections and the 30 petition, if members are concerned in that respect. So this committee does have the opportunity to consider what scrutiny comments were, and come to a different conclusion if they wish, or to make a slightly amended recommendation, which will then go forward to council in the foreseeable future.
Councillor Whitcomb, you want to come back?
Yeah, it's quite correct, and Sean's confirmed it, and Councillor Fussell was right to pick it up. The scrutiny did vote to agree that the plan, with the exception of item D, because it was felt on the night that some of the limitations on residents objecting to individual concerns would reduce the rights of the elected members in those wards to represent the constituents they support and serve. And I don't think we give a firm, and I haven't got my notes with me now, and I can't remember on the nut. We didn't give a firm indication of what it should be, but we requested alternatives to that possibility to make what Councillor Miles was concerned about not part of the whole scheme of things. Rather like everybody else, and Councillor Hussey has explained it, that we were deeply concerned about the level of workload on our existing officers, the need to expand that department so we could cope with increased demand. But the one thing we were concerned about was the rights of our residents and us in representing those residents to come forward and object to sometimes what might seem menial things in the wider scheme of planning, but the little local community can be a major pressure point. So it is, you know, in terms of what Councillor Fussell asked, it was everything bar D, and I think the question was then come back with some alternative proposals. And I did all that from memory without looking at notes. So no doubt the deputy leader would now tell me, no, Andrew, you got it wrong.
Councillor Morgan.
Yeah, thank you, Councillor Sorales. Yeah, I think you're getting the B and the D wrong there, Councillor Whitcomb. If I could just repeat what I said earlier. It says, should Planning Committee share the concerns of the Scrutiny Committee regarding the scheme of delegation, therefore suggested that the proposed scheme of delegation reproduced at paragraph 7.18 be endorsed as long as it omits the part about 20 objectors and 30 names, which is referenced in 718B of the report, B for Bertie. So just for clarity.
Okay, so that's the end of the list of people that wish to question this report. So you, I believe, Councillor Whitcomb, have moved the recommendations.
I have indeed, Chair. Thank you very much.
Okay, and are they seconded? Did we hear a seconder to that?
I'll second that.
Okay, 2 people seconded. That's good. Okay, so we can put that to the vote. So all in favour of those recommendations?
So Chair, can I just check what we're saying then is that the recommendation just to make that one amendment to the scheme of delegation to take out the 30 person or 20 letters of objection section, that would be the only change, and we'd accept everything else. Because I'm still not happy with the scheme of delegation as it would then be amended. So if we were leaving out the scheme of delegation in the same way the Scrutiny Committee rejected it, I would vote yes, I'm happy with that. But if we're saying the proposal in this report now is that we just amend the wording in the scheme of delegation to leave out the 30 people or the 20 letters, if that's the only change, then I'm against. So I kind of need to know which way around we're doing this. So
Ryan and Sean both wanted to come back in on that. Should we go to you, Ryan, first?
Yes, of course. Councillor Miles, based on what you said earlier, your concerns relate to the fact that householder applications wouldn't go to committee as well.
Yes, and
it's the fact that householder applications wouldn't go to committee at all, yeah. and the objection threshold. So that could be again that the objection threshold call-in could be amended to omit to allow householders to go to committee if called in, like they are now, basically.
I think that's what the majority of councillors would want to see, because it is it's a part of our role when people come to us then, because they're having problems with the development, usually next door. They do expect us to be able to have the power to get a site visit, in normal circumstances, and to push it through to committee. So
So
that they
if I
have their day in court sort of thing.
Yeah.
And
So
I think
if I
to
read,
do that entirely is probably going too far.
so if I read the objection threshold, so you're content with the development threshold, departure applications, planning officer referral,
Well,
and
as long
applications.
as I'm content with the development threshold, as long as it doesn't exclude those other instances that I give examples of.
That's fine. And they would be called. They would be caught in by the
not-
calling.
They're
Sorry,
not major developments, are they?
Yeah. So if the objection threshold or the call-in process was amended to read any planning application where a member has requested in writing the head regeneration of planning within 21-day consultation period, the application should be considered by planning committee, and that would allay your fears.
Yeah, because that would then, if it wasn't a major development, but it was, as people were saying, it's important in the community.
Sure.
Then an individual ward member would still have that ability to bring it forward to committee if they felt it was necessary.
Yeah.
Okay.
I don't know.
That would allay my fears. Yeah.
So basically, what you would want is the objection and the petition threshold to be removed, and the reference to householders, so that any application could be called into committee
By a ward member.
Okay.
I mean, you could tweak it and set some other parameters, but I'd be more happy with that being left open rather than take that power away from individual councillors.
Okay.
I think a lot of councillors would have those sort of fears, in actual fact, yeah. Still, we still haven't got quite as far as we need to in order to take a vote on this, because we haven't got total clarity. So who is going to come in now with total clarity?
Chair, sorry to come back on this, but I'm looking at recommendation 3.1 ABC through to E. But the report from scrutiny is specific. It's not 3.1B for Bertie, it's 3.1D for Delta. So am I confused? Is Councillor Morgan confused? Because that does relate to endorse the schemes to delegation to provide planning committee with more strategic role and focus, which is precisely what Councillor Miles is referring to. And appreciate we're almost going around in circles here, but
yeah.
That's what I'm reading on the report. Refers directly to 3.1D for Delta on both parts. I've got no problem with reducing the number of councillors down to 16. You could probably go down to Cardiff numbers, as far as I'm concerned, or RCT numbers. But this is a bit confusing. If we're supposed to be voting on this to endorse it, it doesn't read right. That if you're going to take on board the scrutiny committee's comments, this doesn't sit with what you're recommending.
Yeah. Would it? Oh, sorry, you want to come back in, Ryan? Because I was going to say, would it not be better if we initially vote on 3 parts of the recommendation, or 4 parts of the recommendations, and then continue to discuss the one that is causing us concern, so we can get all those others out of the way? So we can accept the fact that we have a committee of 16. We can accept part A, and then debate the final one to get clarity on exactly what we want. I'm just looking for some sort of leadership as to which way to go forward with this to get the matter resolved. Otherwise, we will be bouncing about and we'll go around in ever increasing circles. It'd be like that the phrase, the buzzwords. Was it front loaded? That reminds me of a dumper truck. It's round and round in circles, tip in. Okay, so can I have some leadership here on the best way forward for this in order to get these recommendations resolved? I don't see any hands up for help.
Chair, I'm going to have to log out and get my notes, because my notes have disappeared off my screen completely. And my committee report. But if Councillor Morgan wants to give some guidance rather than me log out and log back in, because I can't read my notes, because for some reason they've totally disappeared.
I'm sorry, Chair, I'm getting confused with 718 and 3.1. So under 3.1, it's D. and under 718, it's B. So under the report that the committee is now looking at, and I'm not intending to sway it one way or the other. Obviously, it makes so it would be under 318. Let me just check. So under 318, it's B was the one that the committee had concerns with. Yeah, it's D. Sorry, that the committee had concerns with.
I'm trying to get these up on my screen as well, but I've got so many screens here. It's not easy to go through this one page at a time and to see the tiny print. So I'm still looking for advice here.
Can I mean, if the concerns that Councillor Miles have indicated are shared by the rest of the committee, then the recommendation would be to endorse. I'm just trying to find the endorse.
Can I call? I've got Martin Woodland coming in. Perhaps there's a legal way of resolving this as well. And then come back to you,
Chair.
Brian. Martin?
Yes, Chair. I think the suggestion I think that you tried to make a bit earlier would probably assist, right? In that you look at the recommendations in paragraph 3.1, and I understand that the committee would probably be minded to approve A, B, C, and E, and then you take item D separately, and then perhaps take a separate vote on that issue in accordance with what members to approve. And in between that, Chair, perhaps it'd be prudent if you took further advice from the planning officer on that point.
So we can consider, because there's no objections to A, B, C, and E. Is that right? You all agree with that? So can we move those initially, and then look at the outstanding one after, get clarity on it, and then make a decision on that? So will somebody move that?
I'll
Move
move
action.
that.
You move that. Okay, so we're now just looking at those 4 recommendations out of the 5, and we're voting on those, and then we'll come back and discuss the 5th one, get clarity on it, and go forward with that. So here we go down the list again. Those in favour of those 4 conditions, those 4 recommendations initially. We're going to start with Councillor Aldworth because Councillor Adams has left.
Yes, in favour of those 4.
Councillor Andrews.
Chair, can I come in a second?
Oh, sorry. Yes, Martin.
Yeah, I understand Councillor Whitcomb is proposing this motion. Have you got a second there?
I thought we did have a second. Councillor Higgs seconded it earlier on, didn't you?
Thank you, Chair. I missed that. Apologies.
Yeah. Okay, that's fine. Councillor Andrews.
4.
Thank you. Councillor Angel.
4.
4. Councillor Bevan, not your Councillor Mike Davis.
4.
Thank you. Councillor Fussell.
4.
Councillor Higgs. 4. Councillor Hussey.
4.
Councillor Miles.
4.
Councillor Simmons.
4.
Councillor Whitcomb.
4.
Councillor Tom Williams.
4.
Myself, 4. So that's unanimous of those members present. So we have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12. So we got a committee of 12 and the vote is unanimous. So now we'll look at the additional one where we need clarity on. I'm open to suggestions on where we go with that.
Well, can I put forward a proposal for that then?
You're certainly allowed to do that,
So,
Councillor Miles.
so if we look at paragraph 7.1.8, that's where it sets out the 5 points of the scheme of delegation.
Yeah.
I'm happy with A. For B, I'd like to change the wording so it simply reads objection threshold : any planning application, and then pick it up again from Oh, Councillor, hang on, bear with me.
A petition containing 30 or more names from separate householders or 20 or more written decisions on material planning grounds have been received from, where do you want to pick it up? From separate householders or organisations with a 21-day consultation period.
Where a member has requested in writing, so any planning application where a member has requested in writing to the head of regeneration planning within the 21-day consultation, blah, blah, blah.
Yeah.
Okay.
So out the reference to householder applications, the reference to 30 or more names, and the reference to 20 letters of objection. If you wanted to leave something in about material planning grounds, where the member would have to put something in writing and have a material planning ground for doing so, I'd be happy to leave that bit in as well.
Okay. Is there anybody that would second that recommendation put forward by Councillor Miles, who's been working very hard at this tonight? You're doing that, Councillor Higgs?
Yeah.
Are there any other comments anybody wants to make first before we take a vote on that? I can't see any hands up. The list is long. No? Okay, then it's for or against that additional recommendation. So I'll go down the list on that very quickly, and we'll all be able to go home for supper. Right, Councillor Aldworth.
For.
Right, Councillor Andrews.
For.
Councillor Angel.
For.
It's looking good. Councillor Davis.
For, and well done, Brenda.
Councillor Fussell.
Yeah, we'll go along with it. For.
You'll wiggle along with it. Councillor Higgs.
Of course, for.
Councillor Hussey.
For.
Councillor Miles.
For.
Councillor Simmons.
I'll wiggle along as well, Chair. Thank you.
Okay. Councillor Whitcomb. I'm trying to break the 8:30 time limit. Councillor Williams.
For.
And myself. Right. Thank you very much. That's been agreed. So all those recommendations can go forward. Been unanimously supported. Is 2029 on the bottom, so we're breaking the 8:30 barrier. Well done, everybody. Have a good night. Thanks for your patience. Thanks for your contributions. Have a good evening.
Thank you, Chair.
Thank
Thank
you.
you, members.